survival, how can a business you created outlive you? That's what the Lagos Business School intends to cover at the International Family Business Conference for 2026. And it's titled Beyond Survival, Governance Culture as the Foundation of Lasting Family Legacies. And we have right here in the studio the director of LBS Family Business Initiative, Dr. Okenwuke. Dr. Okenwuke, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Good to have you here. I think the first thing is, why is this important? Why are we discussing this to start with?
I think if I listened to part of the earlier program talking about businesses and all of that, the challenge we have is you have family businesses actually make up the bulk of businesses in the world, not just in Nigeria. In Nigeria more so. So if family businesses are not doing well, the economy will not do well, no matter what you do. So it's important that, what is important for family businesses that make up over 70% of GDP, over 80% of businesses that are registered are family businesses. And that the challenge historically that have been noted that many of them struggle to survive between the first and second generations. Over 70% fail, as in completely wiped out. And if you know the magnitude of that, it's important that different things are done today, perhaps to begin to reduce that mortality rate. So it's important what we're trying to do, bring family business owners and players in that ecosystem together in one room. They have peculiar issues, but it's common to most of them. It's not like one person, or, like we say in Nigeria, it's not your family, village people. No, there are things that need to be done, and many of them have the same challenges. But when they sit together and talk, people learn from each other, their successes, their challenges, what you're struggling with, another person has done it before. So instead of repeating that problem phase, it's important to learn from people who have done it. And we found out in the last 3 years or so that we started this conference, extremely relevant and useful. And we get those feedback from people that have been on the program. And they don't fail to attend the next one because they always learn. They bring their children, they bring their spouses and all of that. And everybody gets to think long term and sustainability, when it comes to the family business.
And I guess that's why you have this as your theme, Beyond Survival, because a lot of times it seems these businesses, family businesses, are viewed as, I just want to survive, send my children to school, so because of that I open a shop, and there's really no long-term plan. But I guess we still have some examples of businesses, family businesses that have survived generations.
Yeah, first of all, to your point about that survival, it's true that when you start up a business, first you want to survive because you have to have customers, you have to have people, you need to have cash flow coming in and out, pay your bills and all. That's the first thing. But beyond that, if you ask the question to every successful family business owner, they didn't start it just to survive. They have big dreams. You want to be here, hand it over to the next generation.
Must that dream start at the initial stage, or can it be acquired along the way?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Some are lucky that they start the dream from day one, even though they're starting the business as small. They have long-term view. Some might just start as, okay, and it works. And then they begin to see, if the thing is succeeding, why can't I keep that success going on? So it's not, there are no fixed, method to it. Some start at the beginning, think big, long term. Some start, just like an accidental entrepreneurial drive. It happens also. Then you begin to see it succeed. Then you begin to plan long term for it. Now, in terms of a business that have survived, some of them have survived. In Nigeria, not so many, but we're also trying to do, in the business could have a research, a compendium of family business that have gone from one generation to the other. We're trying to do that now. But historically, a lot of failures happen, in our environment. That, like I said, within that first and second generation, more than 70, 80%, you don't hear about them again. Now, if you see the list of business that you know when you are growing up, how many of them are still in business today? Just mental exercise, not many. But across the world, family businesses have survived. The older family business today, I think from Japan, over 1,850 years. So that means it's been around, but it's a changed form from what they started with, not what they do. But they're still, you can trace it back to where you started from. Right? So business in Nigeria, the larger business in Nigeria, of course, the family business. This studio where we are sitting today is a family business. I'm going to talk to that because the keynote speaker for our conference this year is the chairman of a channel media group, Dr. John Momo. He was gracious to accept our invitation to come because we are particular about the people that we invite to do that. So it's also a family business that is, you can see the plan. If you talk to him, you can see he had plans. And those plans are being implemented. So you have the largest business in Nigeria being a family business by far. Everybody knows Dangote is a family business. It's the largest by far in Africa. So business can start small and it can be big. So it is not, a family business does not necessarily have to be small. It can start small. If your ideas are bigger than even that state, when you started small, of course you can make that idea happen. That particular.
So I guess we should define what we call a family business.
Okay.
Because I had a conversation with a lawyer from one of the companies some weeks ago about this family business and the sustenance of it. And I guess that is where some people just need to be reoriented.
Okay.
When you say it's a family business, must you have family members running the daily operation?
Okay.
Or is it, in what way? What makes it a family business? So that we can now understand that maybe over time, as generations come and generations go, there might be, as you said, a difference in the participation, but it's still a family business.
Okay. First of all, the primary criterion is it is owned by a family. It can be run by a family, but not necessarily so. So I hope you get the point. Once the business is owned, fundamental majority ownership is that of a family. Now, so it's a family business. Now, you can also see in the early stages, it can be, if you go into a business and see a business where you see the members of the family, more than one or two in the senior position, without looking at the registration and all of that, you know it's a family business. But that is not a defining criterion. Is like most times it happens at the early stages, but as family businesses grow, it does not have to be run by a member of the family. But you see the members of the family owning it, and of course running the board. The board appoints management. So the members of the family can choose not to run it on a day-to-day as executives, but they run the board. They put the governance structure in place that appoints management and of course changes them as the case may be. So the key thing for for general definition is that ownership or dominant ownership by a family block, who are also in charge of. If you look at the board, you also see that family represented at that board, primarily, of course, but not necessarily at the executive level. It can happen that the members of the family are running it at the executive level, but it's not. So if a member of the family are not keen on executive operations, it does not take away that definition of family business, as long as the family owns it. In terms of majority holding and governance structure.
So what have you noticed in your study of family businesses in Nigeria? What are those weaknesses that have led to this death, collapse, of most of family businesses?
The critical elements, if you look at the family business, there are two blocks in the family business. They have the business and the family. And they're very important blocks. In a non-family owned business, you only have the business. Of course, you have the shareholders and the management. But in a family-owned business, you have the shareholders, who may be family, fundamentally. But you have a family as an important block that also has an impact in the business. Most times, to your question, most failures we found in family businesses start from failure in the family. That family is not organized. You need to govern that family that owns the business. It's not like everybody everybody is unique. Typically in our world, you don't compare children, you don't compare, everybody is separate. But in business, you do appraisals. You select the best person in one position, you pay incentives based on output. But in the family, most family businesses that fail don't realize that they need to run that business as a business. People that will run the business as executive need to be not just blood, but capable to run the business. That my father is a family business owner, does not, and I'm the first son or first daughter, as the case may be in our environment, does not qualify me to run the business. I'm a shareholder, nobody will take away that right from me. But to run the business, I need to be competent and interested. Two things. I need to be interested and also competent. If I'm not, and you just put me there because I'm the first son, the business naturally will fail. There's something I always tell my friends that run businesses. You can pass wealth to your children. We cannot pass your intelligence, experience to your children. They have to earn it. So if they don't have that competence to run the business and you put them to run the business, naturally the business will fail. It's just a matter of time. And all the cases they are seeing, you can see that. Or you don't also prepare succession. And then maybe as I'm coming to China today, I'm doing all the business, I have an accident and I die. Then what happens to the business? You know, in our environment, somebody say, God forbid.
I
almost heard you say that.
I just said so, actually.
But God forbid is not a strategy. You have to say, if I die, what happens? Who takes over the business? It's something you have to discuss. But when we rely on that, you know, natural, God forbid, it eventually will die. Whether it's today or tomorrow, someday the person will die. Then who takes over the business after? It needs to be discussed and agree and planned for.
So the need to separate the sentiment between the family and the business, that's what I hear you say. And of course, some of our cultural beliefs, you don't want to talk about death and plan for you know that period and all of that. But I mean, I think you also mentioned this, that it's a family business. It's not compulsory that members of the family must run it.
No.
They can own it and make decisions.
And appoint people to run it.
And appoint people to run it. I believe that is something that we really need to drum out there, because, I mean, the natural instinct is, if it's a family business, and family members must run it, or else it's not. But that also brings the issue of corporate governance. That has to be, you know, put out there without sentiments. But I think that's another difficult, because in Nigeria or Africans, I think we're really sentimental.
But to your point now, if you look at the theme of the conference, you know, you see governance and culture. You know, when you ask culture, what is culture? What we do every time. You know, that becomes our culture. A culture of a family, my family, can be different from the culture of your own family. So, but if I have a business as a family, then governance is important as to who does and how do you hire people. Even if I'm a family member, what qualification do I need to have to enter the business? How do I get promoted? Do you pay me at an entry level more than what you pay the managing director from outside? It cannot. If you do that, you're also creating problem for the business. I mean, I advise, so when you talk about governance, you know, if I'm coming into the family business, I'm coming as a professional. Of course, if I'm from the family and I'm qualified, I get the first right of refusal, as we say. But if I'm from the family and I'm not qualified, it will be injurious to both myself and to the business to put me in a position. Because one, I will also run into a problem, and the business will run into a problem. So governance is very critical. Selecting who joins the business, how the person joins the business. Boards. A lot of family businesses in Nigeria don't have boards. Maybe with any research you do, not more than 20% are even thinking of boards. But they tell you what is the value of boards. But you think you need to have boards. Even the CEO needs to have somebody he's accountable to. Even all of us, it's only God that doesn't have somebody that he reports to. But if another person has somebody that, not reporting in the sense, but you bounce ideas off. You bring somebody say, okay, have you thought about this? You can be blindsided because we are doing chasing an objective. But that board helps you to, you know, give you a complete view. So governance is a challenge. And that part of
I think the sentiment around that is you're chipping off the power that the CEO or the owner of business would have had.
Absolutely.
If you have a board that you have to be reporting, well, I don't know if you say reporting to, but at least, you know, like that check and balance. And that, of course, goes to the issue of culture, you know, that we have. But when we talk about legacy and all of that, what really this time in this world, in this part of the world especially, what does it mean?
When you talk about legacy, it goes back to what have been your dream? What do you want to be known for? I mean, I want to be known that I started a business and I'm rich. Is that a good enough legacy? You know, once you make money, find out it's no longer a legacy. You know, sometimes when you are coming from an impoverished background, sometimes you think once I make money, no. But once I have money, find out what is the purpose of the money. What am I? If I'm not there today, how will people remember me? If you remember the story of the gentleman who's when people know Nobel Right and all that, you know that story. The guy got to it. So people thought he died. It was his brother that died. The one that was the physicist. But everything people say was very terrible things about the brother. But they thought it was him. So he now said, "Wow, so if I die, this is what people are going to say about me." He had to now change and start doing things that have purpose. So what is the purpose of the business? Why were you set up? What do you want to achieve? Even today, your children, if they have no purpose in the business, your children that you've taken abroad to study, they won't want to join your business because they've been exposed to the point of, what am I doing what am I achieving in this business? So going back to the point of legacy. When you are not there today, you want to know how will people remember me? How will the community There are some people that you go to, I know a business that in one community they were working, there's a riot. The community people came and protected that factory. That nothing will happen to that factory. Why? Because that factory was like alive. Gave them purpose, solve their problems. So it must have something beyond just money. Money in itself doesn't give peace of mind. But those things you wanted to set out as the owner of the business, how are you able to do that? What structure of your business? It goes back to the culture we're talking about, goes back to governance. Because governance is what I will help you to see beyond today's problems. There are problems every day today. But you need to step away from today's problems and go into the long term. How do I want to be known? When people write about my business and me as the founder, what would they be saying? And that it goes back to now to the legacy you want to keep it beyond just having money. And
these are the conversations you're going to be having at the conference next week?
Absolutely. On Thursday, 26th of March, at the EcoBank Pan-African Center in Victoria Island, Zimbabwe. It starts at 8 a.m. By the way, I've not mentioned, like our keynote speaker, we selected people, both the keynote, the moderators, and the panels. Like I said, John Momo will be our keynote speaker. So for people that are his followers, it's an opportunity for you to come and hear him. And they also have moderators that one of them, probably Kunle Lebute, the former chairman of the KPMG Africa, will be moderating one panel. They have Dr. Belinda, who is also the director of the Lagos Business School Hospitality Initiative, directing one. So I'll give you the names. If you see the names of people, we select people that will speak from the experience. It's not a training. It's experiential. People are saying what they do and how they do things, how they're managing their own succession in their family, how their children are coming in or not interested in coming in. So you're going to hear it straight from them because you create an avenue for all of them, for people to come together and talk.
All right, we certainly wish you the very best, Dr. Okenwoke, Director of LBS Family Business Initiative. Wish you the very best in your conference.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll go global. Please stay with us.